Hey everybody, Robot here from Vespa Motorsport and ScooterWest.com. So a couple months back I did a part 1 video, how to clean your matte finish Vespa. Well, today I'm going to show you how to clean a heavily soiled and dirty Vespa. We're going to get our hands wet here because we're going to use some water, and I'm going to show you some of the products I would suggest using to successfully clean and detail the scooter. And it goes really fast. Come on, it's just a little scooter. Don't necessarily need to get the bucket with the car wash soap. You just don't need that much material to clean this. So in order to successfully clean the scooter, we're going to use the Starbright Extreme Cleaner. And it's nice that's a concentrate that's in this spray bottle here. Doesn't take much of it. Just it's a detergent degreaser that's heavy enough to take all the dirt off this, but not enough to damage anything on the scooter. You can find this on the Scooter West web store. Just search for Starbright. You can see all the 4 different products we have available from them. After we're done drying it, we'll use some of the Ultimate Water Spot Remover, which is a detailer and protectant that kind of leaves a little bit of a film behind. A similar product that's like a waterless spray that we'll use when it's all dry for final detailing is the Spray Cleaner and Polish. It's been a very popular product for us. We've had it for a really long time. Cool thing about this is you can bring it along with you, and typically if I want to have a clean bike somewhere, I'll take a brand new microfiber rag, I'll wrap that up and put it right under a seat. And I send a lot of customers off with this. They ask how to wash a scooter. I give them a free microfiber rag and one of these spray cleaners, and it's a good little combo just for a quick little detail without using any water. And of course, since we're getting water involved, we'll have kind of a little bit dirtier microfiber rag. Make sure it doesn't have any metal or anything. And sometimes you'll need a soft sponge. So let's get right to it. All right, so a couple ways to skin the cat here. So of course you could just use a garden hose, or you can go to one of those quickie wash places that has like a pressure wash wand. If you're gonna use a pressure washer like this, make sure it has like a 25 or 40 degree fan. You know, that's the water jet coming out. There's some of these jets that are very, very powerful, and they will take the paint off your scooter. That's great for degreasing or if you have some real crazy problems, but not a good idea to use, especially it may get into the switches and some of the electrical components. A lot of people ask, is it safe to water a scooter down? Yes, but you know, with limits. I mean, if you ride this through a flooded street that's up to 3 feet, I don't know if the scooter is going to make it through it, but you could certainly ride these through a rainstorm, so you could totally wash them. This scooter belongs to a longtime friend of the shop, Gravy. He's done a lot of barbecuing for us. He's recently had some health problems. Unfortunately, he's probably not going to be able to ever ride a scooter again. So I'm going to do him a big favor. I'm going to clean up his scooter. We're going to fix it all up. I'm going to do a bunch of videos about this scooter, tune it all the way up. It's a really awesome buddy scooter. It has some custom paint work, or the pinstriping and paint work that was done by Manny Cincinnero. He's a pretty famous pinstriper here in San Diego. Gravy was also part of the Creepy Creeps, you know, which is a local band here in San Diego. I wish the best to him, but let's do what we can to a scooter, and I hope this goes to a really good home. So we're in a little pressure wash room of the shop, and I got my wand here. I'm gonna still be a couple feet away. This thing's not muddy, but it's got a lot of dirt on it. And we'll start from the top and kind of work our way down. And just kind of go all the way around, kind of a circular motion. Get into those wheels. Get the stuff like the rubber and plastic, you can get much closer with the wand because you're not going to damage that. But when it comes to the painted surfaces or even the upholstery of the seat, you can get a little closer, but the painted surfaces, step back a little bit. You don't want to be blasting the paint off the scooter. So all we're doing is the first step, kind of the rinse, get it all wet right here. And fortunately, everything's pretty wet on the scooter. And now we'll use some of that detergent to clean the scooter. So We'll use the Extreme Clean and just give it a little mist all over. And this can go on everything. It doesn't hurt, you know, any of the surfaces that are found on scooters. So this bottle will go a long ways. You know, as much as I'm using here, you probably get another 15 cleanings out of the scooter. And maybe some areas, if it's a little greasy, you can get a little closer and blast a little bit more. It's like in the middle of that hub, there's a little bit of grease. You know, anything that's a little dirtier than normal, you may want to apply a little bit more. So I think we're pretty good right there. So go ahead and take a wet, maybe used microfiber rag, one that's been laundered, and just give everything a quick wipe down. And I usually like to start on all the stuff that's not heavily soiled with this rag, because you do not want to like pick up the grease or any of the heavy grime and grind it into the paint surface. The paint job on the scooter, I think it's got like, it was repainted at one point, and then Manny did that pinstriping on it. And we're just kind of working from the top. And a lot of times don't forget about in here. I wouldn't spray in here, but we can wipe in there once we're done with this rag here. Kind of wipe out the inside area of the scooter. And now we're kind of getting to the lower areas of the scooter. Some of the areas are greasier. Go onto the wheels. You may want to wear gloves sometimes too, because these detergents kind of eat up your hands a little bit. And you're just touching different parts of the scooter. FYI, the scooter is fairly cool. I mean, you could do this after you rode. You just got to be careful not to get, you know, cool the motor down too quickly. And I think we're pretty good right here. Now it's time for a rinse. Go underneath here. A little bit of water usually does get in the underseat bucket, especially when pressure washing a scooter. So FYI, I like removed everything. You don't want to leave your jacket under here and get that all wet. All right, so with the final rinse, so just like with the initial rinse, kind of just do the same thing over again. Start from the top and work your way down. So and stuff like the wheel, kind of want to clean it pretty good. Give the wheel a little kick. So two ways you can go about drying the scooter. You want to dry it and not allow especially tap water to dry on there. If you did have deionized or softened water, it's not likely to leave spots on it. Two ways to go about that. We can dry it off with very clean microfiber rags, just kind of work it off and wring it off. Here in my shop, I do have a professional dryer. It's pretty noisy, but essentially it's like a high pressure, high volume blower. You could use like a leaf blower if you have one of those. I actually use that sometimes on my own motorcycles and scooters at home, and it works really good, like a good leaf blower. Preferably not a gas one, but the electric ones. And this thing will blow most of the water off, and then we'll use that, do the last detailing with this clean microfiber rag. So turn this on. So just like with rinsing it, we'll start from the top and move to the bottom. So there's one problem with this scooter that's not something you may encounter. Well, maybe you will. If you have sap or overspray from something, the first line of defense is actually a clay barring detail. I'm not going to go into a whole video about this, but basically you put kind of like a lubricant cleaning solution onto the area, and McGuire's makes a product like this where you could do the whole thing, and you just rub clay over it, and believe it or not, it takes most of the stuff off and will leave a really smooth finish, because I could feel that it was very rough on the finish, and you can see it leaves all this dirt behind on the clay, and then you just need the clay back in there, and it's taken that that off. Alternatively, we could buff it with a machine buffer, you know, but pretty much go over the whole bike. If there's sap or overspray from like house paint or something on there, this is the trick. So essentially we would do this whole bike. I'm not going to show how to do it because it does take, it's quite a long process of spraying with this lubricant and going over the whole thing. Now I'm going to go into some of the detail products. So after you wash a heavily soiled scooter and use the degreaser on it, I would use something like this Starbright Ultimate Water Spot Remover. I think it works pretty good. Alternatively, you could use this spray cleaner and polish. That works pretty much as well. They're pretty similar products. And you can just spray it on and kind of buff it into the finish. And it doesn't leave behind a thick waxy film, but it does leave behind a little bit of a protectant film on the scooter, and you pretty much buff it in there. Obviously I'm using a very clean rag since we washed the scooter, preferably a new rag that you'll hand down to next time you wash the scooter with a hose. You'll use this rag, you know, kind of, that's my order of how I use these rags. Is I'll start fresh when I'm doing these detail work, but in that initial cleaning you could use a hand-me-down rag as long as it's not packed with lots of material. And you don't need that much of that spray. It kind of goes a long ways. There's some on the rag right now, and it's kind of buffing into all these finishes right here. See, I'm making even these stems look nice and shined up right here just by buffing what little is on this rag into those mirror stems. And you do with everything. And obviously you'll get better results the more elbow grease you put into detailing your scooter. So you could pretty much use that water spot remover all over the place, but I find the spray polish kind of works good when your plastics look a little bit dry. So I like to use this on this inner plastic. There are more aggressive plastic cleaners and that leave like a kind of a more greasy shine, but this stuff, it seems to do a pretty good job kind of to restore the finish. Pretty much just soak it in. You kind of use more than you normally need to. Just be careful you put it on the floor mat. It's going to make that floor mat a little bit slippery at first, so you know, something to keep in mind on a scooter. Definitely don't want to use any of these products on the wheels or tires. You can clean the inner part of the wheels. I see people with detailed tires, it just turns me off. I'm like, that is a dangerous situation as far as I'm concerned. Detailing your tires is just not a good idea on two-wheelers. You could clean the tires really well. That's what I would suggest doing with some type of detergent. They could take quite a bit of detergent. So you allow this to soak in a little bit. You can already see it, this looks much darker. You don't necessarily need the really clean rag. We can go to a much dirtier rag, even when it has junk in it, because this stuff isn't painted. You know, it's just black plastic. And you find different varying amounts of this kind of black plastic or even color tinted plastic on most scooters. Even a Vespa that's mostly painted, kind of a higher end scooter, there's still a couple little trim pieces that are this matte black plastic, and that effect works really well. Vespa is mostly painted, so you mostly be using things like that water spot remover. And at this point you could just kind of buff it into the plastic and wipe it up. And again, it kind of goes a long ways. It's in the rag, so you can wipe other areas of the scooter. Definitely try to buff it off your floor mat the best you can. You know, at this point, the rag may be kind of a little bit wet with that solution. You could use it on the seat, but you know, underneath the seat, I'd just continue cleaning other interior parts of the scooter as well with that same rag, you know, and move along. And the last thing I'd be using this rag on would be to move on to the engine area and wheels. So once you clean kind of this, I would like to say the interior of the scooter, you can move on to cleaning your engine area and the wheels. You know, of course, just taking care not to get much on the tires. So buff it into the air box, your belt cover, and so on. You know, the shocks, you know, sometimes if I want to get around the shock, I'll roll a rag and pull it and kind of just use it to buff between the springs, and it makes it look really nice. You know, little tips that some people wonder how to make that spring look really nice. You just do that. And then the last thing I'd use this rag for is get right there in there and clean the inside of the wheel. I'm not spraying any extra material. It's just what's on the rag. And look at that. So now this rag's kind of, it's definitely not touching my painted surfaces of my scooter. So that's kind of the order of operations, how I clean a scooter. You know, maybe even use this to clean the inner fenders if you want to use the rag all the way up to its dirtiest potential. So that's kind of some of my tips for successfully cleaning a very dirty scooter. We move from there. If it's muddy, you just may need to use more water to kind of wash the mud off. And it's just important to every once in a while clean your scooter. You know, a lot of these finishes will become oxidized, especially if your scooter has a lot of chrome. You want to use protectant product. You don't necessarily need to use chrome polish, but like wax or even any of those water spot remover, or even this spray will have protectants. If you put it on surfaces that are chrome, it will hold up a lot longer. It just leaves a real fine film that keeps moisture from attacking those metal parts. So I hope you enjoyed my tips on cleaning your fairly filthy scooter. Works on a motorcycle just as well, except for motorcycle's a little different. Less painted surfaces and more engines and inner plastic kind of surfaces. Harley is a whole nother beast, you know, with all that chrome. But definitely having some of the right products on hand. They're pretty inexpensive. They go a long, long way. You buy like a bottle like this, it's gonna last you maybe years. You know, I have like a can like this that lasts me a couple of years at home, and I have several motorcycles. I use so little of it because it's in the garage and I'll wipe it down. So, and pretty important to have a good supply of the microfiber rags. I'll tell you a tip on where these come from, Costco. So if you have a membership to Costco, that's gonna be your most cost-effective way to get microfiber rags. But they can be found at any, you know, any store, auto parts store, Walmart, etc. Until next time, Robot here from Vespa Motorsport and ScooterWest.com. I hope you like part 2 of cleaning and detailing your scooter. I have several more parts to come, cleaning pretty much new Vespas that have a lot more painted surfaces with a dry method, no water involved, and so on. See you on the next one. Robot here.